the grant recipients from last year. And I'm just so thankful for that. So I want to just encourage those of you here that don't know that much about it, or it's new to you, or maybe you've applied before. I just want to encourage you to try that again or do it for the first time. It wasn't an intimidating process. You're not really writing a grant from scratch per se with certain formats and paragraphs or any of that to worry with. They ask you just some straightforward questions, you know, about your intentions or dreams or goals, and then you can just express yourself, and it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. So there's nothing to lose, nothing to be afraid about. Just put your hat in the ring and put your thingy in the hat, however that goes, and it's all good. So just want to encourage you with that. I loved my trip. I got to fly to Philadelphia and walk around, and I don't eat Philly cheesesteak because I'm vegan, but I had some really good falafel there at the local market. I got to collaborate and meet with someone who now is my writing partner. And we actually exchange our work and go back and forth and give feedback. And lots of great connections came from it. So I'm just so delighted, so thankful to be part of this community at Fidm too. All right, so the purpose of this, as my lovely flyer that they made for me stated, was to kind of enhance your overall writing skills. That can come in with your academic writing. Maybe you're designing a syllabus and you want to pop in some colorful language or some quotes. Maybe it's at the start of your quarter. We're kind of there right now, right? And you're like, how do I introduce myself to my class? Like, how do I kind of hook my audience, hook my listeners? That can be through descriptive imagery. That can be through storytelling. That can be through a joke. That can be, you know, all of those things we learned in those comp and long time ago speech and comp classes about how to engage our audience and keep them wanting more. Throughout the quarter, just as a side note, I like to do a lot of unusual things. I teach speech, so this maybe goes hand in hand with the speech teaching, but something like a meditation, right? And you go, okay, everybody, let's just breathe, especially before they get to speaking. And in fact, a lot of your classes have presentations, right? It's not just my speech class. You're having them get up and present. Okay, it's presentation day. Something new for you. Let's do a 10-minute, a 5-minute meditation. I also sometimes like to get them up and moving a little bit, just because there's those nerves, and it's either nerves and energy before they speak, or it's a 3-hour class and they're going, oh, and we're all feeling the burn, right? So to get up out of that chair and just to stretch it, inhale, exhale, bring it down. Do a little bit of stretching, nothing too complicated. Maybe we're going over here and breathing with it, you know, a little bit of the neck. But getting them up out of their seats. I'm pretty quirky, but when I was on campus teaching, I would even do a few laps around the hallway, and they laughed and laughed. But even that laughing was activating their energy. Even that laughing was refreshing their minds so that they were ready to soak in all that content. So that's good for everybody involved. Okay, so overall enhancing your writing skills and your communication skills as whether you're speaking or writing. I'm hoping that this will give you just some new fuel for the fire. But let's see, I mean, purposes even interpersonally, relationally, there's writing skills. Maybe we're expressing a boundary to someone, or using I statements to express how we feel. I mean, just the list goes on and on. The other purpose outside of just the explicit writing benefits that I'm hoping this will bring you is the kind of concept of cross-genre pollination. We could go around in here and share, what's your art form, or what do you teach, or what's your hobby, or what do you do? And I bet just in this group here, we'd have, in fact, feel free to put that in the chat. I'd like to read some of those. So in the chat, I invite you to put kind of, what's your hobby, or what do you teach, or what are you passionate about? Drawing and painting is coming in, poetry, sculpture, dance, architecture, visual art. I mean, what creative, talented people, interior design, I love interior design because that really creates that vibe and that environment. And all of these are so important. We've got creative students here at Fidm, and we've got creative faculty. And so there's so much in this group that I could go, ooh, oh, Diaz has got a fashion sketch. I want to do a dance. I want to see if I can embody that, a vibe with that feather or that. or hairstyle. I did hair modeling for about 10 years. And boy, some of those days I had wild hair concepts. Once I was the Queen of Hearts and it was fire engine red and I got to walk through. So there's all kind of ways. Yes, yes, yes. Dancing, painting, flamenco, Isabel, beautiful theater. Oh, my mind is starting to. So just for fun, if you want, you can start to think about even the ones that are listed here. How does surfing play into a sound? Like if I'm doing a modular synthesizer, how do I make waves? Or how do I, business, marketing, all of those skills are so important, Mona. And love football. That could be a dance. There's actually, you guys already probably know this, but the ballerinas coming in to train the football players, and they're like, they think it's fluff at the start, and then they go, oh, that was intense. Those dancers, that's no joke. Fundamentals of cosmetics, very exciting. There's so much play. I like to sometimes, I used to be a clown for Disney World, and I like to play with clown makeup and just that vibe and bring that into the aesthetic. That's really interesting to see my pastel hair. Laurelyn, I teach trend analysis, and I'm also a dancer, beautiful, and a newly certified health coach. Congratulations, health and well-being, congratulations to you. I have a new newsletter, so I'm curious for your suggestions. Okay, so there's a wonderful, thank you for that example. Another thing, I'll try to circle back at the end to kind of see like how you're thinking like writing skills come into play, but feel free also to pop it in the chat, how you might use this, what's interesting about this content, or how could you use writing, or do you have something you're working on, or maybe it's applying for this new grant. So how could that come into play? Okay, Victoria, collecting vintage patterns, fashion books from the 20s and 30s. Love that. I was just brushing up on my 20s and 30s lingo. He's the cat's pajamas. He's the cat's meow. All these funny slogans from the 20s. I love it. The roaring 20s. Pre-production for apparel. Wonderful. Randy picked up electric guitar. Jam on, Randy. Love it. And late in life and loving. And that is a way that we can bring the excitement in. And that's part of going back to my intention for this little miniature lecture, or whatever this is, workshop, is that you'll get some fresh inspiration. We're starting our quarter off. Here we go. Let's get some fresh wind and some fresh energy. Talia, curious to use this for blog writing. Perfect for blog writing. Love it. I would love to read your blog too once it's up and running, or your newsletter. So feel free to, I'll put my email in the chat. And if y'all want to send me any of your writing, that would be a delight to see anything that came out of this. All right, teaching social media, practicing yoga, and love your hair. Thank you so much. That's part of the creative expression. You might have a delicious cotton candy at the fair, and then that inspires your hairstyle. Anything is cross-genre pollination. And by the way, I didn't come up with that phrase cross-genre pollination, but it did inspire me. Okay, so that's the purposes. Now we'll get into the content. All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to kind of look at one particular artist, and usually that's how we get into the deeper meanings of things, is when we go out of the broad generalizations and into the small details. So rather than saying love is da 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 da, love is a big word. Why don't you just describe your grandmother, that one person, and the smell of her pine at Christmas, and the butterscotch she always made for you, and the wrinkles in her face, and the, all of that. And then we start to see what love is. If you're writing a environmental piece about the dangers of whatever plastics, it's bad for the environment. How much more powerful to look at one little baby sea turtle yelping as he's caught in the net or the plastic, or whatever, and he's disconnected from his mother, and the one little guy down there. Much more powerful when you go into the micro. All right, so music as inspiration, and again, we can be inspired, not just music to writing, but in all varieties. I want all of our minds to be able to be expanded into how that would work for, or be best for your particulars in your life, of course. Okay, so we're exploring music through a study of Whitman's Leaves of Grass. So first, I want to I'm going to make my screen here so that I can see you all, because that way that's better for discussion. I want people, if you can, to kind of like unmute, share, pop it in the chat, which I can't actually, I don't think I can see the chat now that I'm sharing. So maybe Blaine or something can help me out with that. But I want to know, do any of you write with music now? Like, is that a part, or maybe you're not writing? Okay, Kenneth, good. Maybe you're not writing, but you're doing your art form or you're doing your grading. Grading is kind of nice with music. So I'm kind of curious. So thank you for sharing that, Kenneth. What, if you don't mind sharing, what kind of music do you like to listen to for that?
I have to unmute, sorry. I took all music lessons growing up, you know, piano, guitar, cello, so I do it all.
Wonderful. And what kind of style of music do you like to listen to as you write or grade or whatever?
Well, it depends, you know, because obviously I draw things like Chopin, but I also like traditional world music from like Henri Diconguet. He's out of Cameroon. He's brilliant. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. So yeah, if you're asking about pop and stuff like that, like BTS, I have no time for. Okay?
Hey, I love Chopin. I love Liszt. I love all those guys. It just, oh, it transports me. So very good taste. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to share? Oh, my other pink-haired sister showed up. Hello. Anyone else want to share? Do they listen to music? Are there anything coming in on the chat? Let's see. I might pop out of my share.
Says Nino Rhoda soundtracks. Randy, you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah.
Soundtracks. Wow, that's interesting.
Well, it's Fellini soundtracks.
Ah.
Oh wow, I bet that's powerful. And do you
write?
write
Chord is really beautiful.
Wow. And do you write to that or other things too?
It's a background. It's background music.
Background music. I love it. We're going to later on in this kind of do some music with lyrics and without and have that conversation because I can't write with lyrics because I start to go off into.
Well, that's, yeah, this is just pure music, no lyrics, because I would listen to the lyrics.
Same here, Randy, the instrumentals all the way. Okay, someone else is coming in on the chat. Lorraine, Pandora, I like Pandora too. Lots of stations, classical, jazz, and they all can kind of activate a mood. Right? Sometimes we want to get that, like before this, I went and took a nice nature walk. I'm recently off of caffeine, so I couldn't rely on that. So I could get outside, breathe, get some fresh air, and that kind of activated my senses. Sometimes we want to chill out with music, right? So it's kind of whatever we're looking for. All right, so now that I'm done looking, I'm going to jump back in. Okay, so women like to write, as we were just describing, under the influence of music. So for Whitman, music functioned as the stimulant, releasing the energies of the soul, which gave the poet precious insights into the relations between the material and the spiritual existence. So I want to hear what thoughts anyone might have, and you can just unmute yourself or whatever. What could that mean with the spiritual and the material? Like, what does that look like? Let's see. What do you think, Blaine?
I have to say movement comes to mind first. When you say material, there's such a, it's part of the reason that I play music in a drawing class is because it's such a physical activity that I don't want them just to be sitting and I don't want them to be bored. And there's a material in your brain, I guess, that's moving that sort of keeps us active and interested. But I think movement, I don't know. I also, the spiritual aspect of it, I once heard a writer talk about when he hears a beautiful symphony that there's an instrument within him that plays along. I just thought that was such a beautiful thing. And kind of when you say connecting the material and the spiritual, I think of that quote.
Thank you for sharing. That was so lovely. Isabel.
Yeah, so something that I want to say, just complementing what Blaine just said about movement, I think that when we're talking about that connection between material and spiritual is that there is probably a feeling and sentiment that is driven that movement. And usually you see, like, whenever a person is calm, there is because you see them static or stationary, or the way that they flow is soft and the feeling is also soft. So it's kind of like a line. But if something is more rough, it's more kind of like with the, there is another feeling that is driving that. So then I think that that's a beautiful way of connecting those two things, that one is the motivator to the other one and reflects how you're.
I'm enjoying this class much better with the faculty. I mean, I love my students, but with faculty, boy, every insight is just philosophical and poetic. I'm overwhelmed. This is beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you, Isabel. Wow.
Mona's placed a comment here.
Oh.
You want to unmute, or shall I read that?
Please feel free.
I have it.
Oh.
Okay. I'm having construction, so if you hear things going on, that's why. I learned with my mom with dementia, and I always knew it. I was a musician. Maybe some of you don't know. First chair New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. So when I was in 10th grade, playing flute. So I thought I'd be a musician. But what I learned with my mom with dementia is music is a trigger for memories. It puts you in a time, a place, emotion. So I love it for students. I don't do it. I didn't even think of doing it. But I know with my mom that if I put music on, she remembered stuff because the music would also trigger the memory. And they say that about babies, right, Isabel, right? And it's amazing how music, and then I worked for Dick Clark, okay? And we said in every interview, music is the soundtrack of our lives. So we remember everything about our life by a song. And he said it in every interview. I was tired of hearing it, but it makes sense. Okay, and so I was amazed. I've always loved music. I've always been a musician, but it is the trigger in your brain to remember something, to feel something. And again, until today, I never thought of using it in the classroom. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mona. Marlon.
I don't know if anybody has ever seen this video clip. I think it's on YouTube. And it is of an older woman who was a ballerina in her professional life. And she's in a home for people with dementia. She has Alzheimer's, and she's basically non-communicative at this point, at this stage in her disease. And someone put earphones on her, headphones, and played a piece from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, which she danced many times in her life. And you can watch this woman who's sitting in I think it's even a wheelchair, like literally start doing the choreography. Like the music is literally bringing her back. And I even know that piece. So I could see that she remembered like what came where. And it was like even telling you, it's like chill, like really powerful.
Wow. I think of it too, like movement is life, like living things, like the sound waves, the vibration, like we're moving. And if we're stagnant, we're like, maybe dead or dying or need some activation. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, I better get moving. This is wonderful, but I better keep moving along or I'll run out of time. What man, this is wonderful. I wish this was like an all-day writing retreat I could take with you. Okay, well, let's jump in with a little bit of writing, shall we? So we're going to do a quick writing exercise. Let's go hard. Let's do like 2 minutes, maybe 3. We'll feel it out. And the prompt concept that I have is kind of just fun. It's just to create a character. If you don't like that concept, do something else. That's all good. I'd like to keep it open because it's creative writing. So I'm going to play a little fun music. And then I'd love to hear some people share whatever came up for them, but no pressure or anything like that. All right. So here we go.
cent pocotinich with 5 and 60 spinach. A la 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 da da do, doki badu, okay badu. I love to really bumpo, a choosy in a scumpo, Havana, Havana dumpo, a tula rula le.
So that was really quick, right? It may have only been a minute. I got so into the moment that I didn't keep track of time, but I bet you got to write a little something. I was actually really amazed by, I did this exercise with some of my students yesterday, and they came up with, it was just really neat. No pressure on what you wrote, but one of them, his name is Roman. I don't know if anybody else has him this quarter, real special guy, but he was saying that, and I played a Kate Wolf song, and he was saying it was this funeral director, and he went to work every day, and he was bored, and he was walking down the dark street, but then he went into the little diner, and when the waitress spoke, Kate Wolf was the sound of his voice. I thought, that's really an elaborate kind of beautiful thing. So, all right, so let's oh, great. We've already got people raising their hands. Awesome. D Young. Or oh, wait, that's just my mouse. I'm sorry. My mouse was over you. It looked like a little Mickey Mouse hand. All right. So who would like to just share? And these are 1 minute little rough drafts, no pressure. Like I'll read what I wrote. It wasn't very good. Don't tell me you can't make it. I'm here blushing beside you. Get into it. Don't hold back. Every moonlight is a chance. Throw your coin into this fountain. And let's see. It didn't end very strong, but that's okay. That's what editing is for. Oh, we've got people coming in on the chat. Okay, cool. So Diaz says, dancing heartbeats, bouncing lines around the world, curvy people, and a salon invites to celebrate. Great, great, great. And so sometimes it's that it's a vibe, right? So some of you may not have a poem or a piece of writing per se, but you felt something, you saw something, there was a visual, there was a vibe, and I like that. Dancing, bouncing, heartbeat. I'm gonna trade out my headphones here. Who else? Oh, we got more and more. Okay, as writers, they want to share through writing. I love it. I love it. Okay, in the cinema, Kenneth says, watching. Oh, my French pronunciation. Who can do that one for me? Kenneth, how do you say that?
Un chien andalou.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Randy's got us in the opium den. This is so fun. It was quiet except for the passing troop of gypsies playing their accordion and drums. I lay back on the velvet couch and slipped into the haze of daylight, streaking from the windows. Nice word choice. Memory. I just heard memory. Wow. Wonderful, Randy. Okay, let's do last call, and then we're gonna keep on zipping. I got 15 minutes. I'm glad.
I tell you, Kendall, I was
Yes.
making choreography. I went right to cabaret. I saw Liza, and I was making steps, and I just couldn't even bring myself to like write words because that music made me want to just dance. So that's
Totally.
what me.
Totally. In fact, when I was preparing some of these musical choices last night, I totally got up and danced, and it was like a whole vibe. It was like a really weird, it got really kind of clowny and weird and fun. And I love musical theater too. So yes, cabaret, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. This is fantastic, fantastic. All right, so let us go out of this. Let's see. Am I still screen sharing or no? No? Okay. All right, so let's screen share back into our presentation. All right. That was really fun. So we'll do it from the beginning. All right, so continuing, we will talk about kind of Whitman's influences. Of course, he was in the 1800s. And so they looked a little different from the music of today. So he had this symphonic influence, of course, all of the orchestra concerts he went to, and the violas and trombones and clarinets, all that. And then organ music. See, he was kind of a dramatic guy. And so he liked that epicness of the big pipe organ and the sound of it and the voice and the timbre. Church music, right? Church was so a part of the culture back then, not like it is now, but everybody went to church. That was just part of how it went. And the church folk, they were the preeminent artists. They were the best. I mean, the Sistine Chapel, and Bach wrote to the glory of God. And so it was so embedded. And on a side note, as a Christian person myself, I find it sad that there's not as much creativity as there should be, could be. Joy, childlike expression. Is there, sing the 3 songs and then the guy speaks. And so I'm like, no, there's more there. There's more. All right, would somebody, I'm talking a lot, would somebody volunteer to read this quote? And I can't really see your hand, so you can just unmute yourself, and if you would, just read it for me. Yeah, I'm gonna call on Roberta. I see your smiling face.
Okay. When I commenced years ago elaborating the plan of my poems, one deep purpose underlay the others and has underlain it and its execution ever since. And that has been the religious purpose, not of course to exhibit itself in the old ways, as in writing hymns or psalms with an eye to the church pew, or to express conventional pietism or the sickly yearnings of devotees, but in a new way, and aiming at the widest sub-bases and inclusions of humanity, and telling the fresh air of sea and land. I love Whitman.
Yes, good.
It's great.
Beautiful. I know, I always feel like he's speaking directly to me when I read. It's very intimate. So I don't need to break this down. You know, of course, we could go into what comes up for you when I say that he didn't write with an eye to the church pew. I mean, we could go into a whole discussion. We don't have the time. But you're getting the overall vibe, right? He's like, okay, so it's religious purpose, but lest you jump to conclusions or assumptions, let me explain what I mean by that. We're not the old ways and the piety and all that, or the sickly yearnings of devotees groveling along in guilt or shame, and I gotta get better with this. But there's a new way. I want to aim at the widest sub-bases. Whoa, 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 that deep soul sound that maybe we feel in the roar of the ocean. There's a wildness to it that we don't often see in church. And the inclusions of humanity. So there's this wide openness to be inclusive to all of the souls, all the childlikeness, all the whatever expressions and colors, and the fresh air of sea and land. So going to nature as a way of looking at spirituality, well, that gets pretty wild. And one of the things that some of the church people may not understand is that, I mean, I'm talking from a church perspective because we're on this slide. I'm not trying to get too onto that, but essentially that God is creative, that he is a creator, that the rainforest isn't in perfect little triangles, all to man's standards, exactly alike, right? There's diversity. There's diversity and unity. There's almost what to our eye would look as chaos, but it's this uncontainable, uncontrolled wildness. And that's actually good, that can actually be holy. Ooh, it just gets people in a little messed up tizzy sometimes. But that nature, that vibrance, that gorgeous, uncontainable passion. And then, of course, the Italian opera. He loved it because, again, Whitman had such a strong sense of voice. So this was kind of the one that I want to focus on with you today, because I see the clearest parallel between he heard this voice, and he wanted to be that voice in his writing. Like he had these feelings that he got from sitting at the opera, and he wanted to make others feel that. He couldn't sing. I majored in undergrads in opera, so I had to, I had to sing a little time to time. Thank you, thank you. But he had this interest in the human voice. Couldn't necessarily sing the opera, but he could do his writing. That was musical, that was lyrical. All right, so at the opera, a new world, a liquid world, rushed around like a torrent through him. Music became material in his writing. And there we are back to the conversation of spirituality becoming material. The imagination and the creativity manifesting in an actual design or fabric or whatever. He developed new thoughts, ideas, sentences from hearing music played or sung. And that's kind of what I was hoping to bring as a concept to you all today, so that you can kind of have new thoughts, ideas, whatever, to help empower you. What kept him coming back was a deep, incurable appreciation and hunger for the creative power. That's what I want you to have. And you already have it, hopefully, I'm sure, but more creative power to you, more power to you. Plus the whole gamut of emotions and mystical revelations. Music was his muse. So you're seeing, I know I'm giving a lot of content here at once, but I want that to be a rush over you too, where there's just a lot coming here, whoa, and different things. And then later we'll have time to kind of process it more too. All right, so we talked about how music kind of in this metaphorical, metaphysical way can become literal writing or literal craft or content. But now I want to talk about how this is actually also music in a literal sense. So his writing actually has musical elements or components. Okay, so let's get into that. So first, let's just throw out and can just unmute yourself, whatever. Somebody give me some just elements of music. What are some components or elements of music?
Repetition with variation.
Oh, okay, you're great. So exactly, we've got repetition, and you know, it could be tone, timbre, pitch, all these things. But I like yours, Blaine. So let's go down into that rabbit hole. Repetition, rhythm, beat, that consistent thing. Does anyone, feel free to unmute if you got the answer, who sees repetition here? What's repeated?
I guess.
I guess, exactly. Who was that? Sorry, I can't see the video super well.
Mona.
Mona, would you be so kind as to read this little piece for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
I guess it must be the flag of my disposition out of hopeful green stuff woven, or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift in remembrance of designedly dropped, feeding the owner's name some way in the corners that we may see and remark and say whose. Or I guess the grass is itself a child that produces babe of the vegetation. Or I guess it is a uniform hieroglyphic.
Beautiful, thank you. So in here, I see sort of like a call and response, right? An initial and then a response, or it could be a chorus and a verse. You've got that repeated element and then the variation. In classical music, we call that theme and variation. And there's repeated rhythms in that, just as an example. Or I guess it must be da 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 da, or I guess da 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 da, or I guess, or I guess. And in the music of his time period, going back to Beethoven's Fifth, they often ended with a toot, like a bump, bump, like an end stop, like a mic drop, full stop. I'll get into spoken word, but so that powerful that ending on two was very timely in that period, or regularly done in that period. So, I mean, we can go into line breaks, how at the end of, like, ending with out of hopeful green, that leaving us there gives us that concept of hopeful green, and we're visualizing that before they give us the rest of the line, stuff woven. Line breaks or enjambment is where you cut the line. So you see how there's, I guess it must be the flag of my disposition out of hopeful green. That's like one line. Stuff woven is line two, right? So where you choose to split it, some of you may already know this, but that can add meaning. and I'm not going to go too into this because this is more specifically for poetry, although some of your content writing and stuff, I think like a lot of my Instagram, they're all, I use enjambment in all of my Instagram posts just because that's how I think. Another example of that would be that we may see. That left you there when you're sort of, what am I seeing? What do I? And remark and say whose. So as you're reading it, you're in step and in time with the writer in that experience where they're seeing it, but it's taking them a moment to see the blade. This is all about grass and blades of grass. It's giving them a moment to see and to recognize and then remark and say whose. So throwing that out there. There's a lot more we could do on this, but I think I need to keep moving along. Okay. He wanted his writing to have a similar influence and emotional effect on his readers to what the Italian opera had on him. We talked about that. So then I would just pitch and ask to you, like, what's your intention in writing, in your classes, on your date? You know, how do you want to leave a person? What kind of influence do you want to have? This has to do with rhetoric, right? A speaker influencing an audience. That speaker could be an architect. It could be a chef. This is the fruit of my culture and my, my flavors, whatever. And you're telling a story through that piece. So all of this gives us opportunity to add that extra soul spice or that extra soul music. I had another exercise here, and I think I ran out of time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it to you, so that you have that as a take home, right? If you want to do a little more deeper work for that. The piece that I was going to do was going to be like, I was going to play you some modular synthesizer music because my husband actually creates electronic synths. Like he puts them together from scratch and like melds them and molds them and all this stuff. So I was going to play some modular synthesizer music if you wanted to kind of write that down and do that later. And I was going to have you create a setting. So instead of a character, you were going to be getting that vibe. Honestly, it's kind of a variation on the first theme. So I don't feel like you're missing out on too much there. Okay, so basically this concept can kind of be like a cure for writer's block, or if you're stuck on something, you know, maybe you pop some music on, maybe that changes the vibe. Maybe you go for a walk, maybe you phone a friend, maybe you drink some hot tea, maybe you jump in a hot bath, maybe you like, it's almost all of the things that we can do. I don't know if anybody's with me here, but it's almost all the things we can do to sort of deal with our cravings or something. If we have a craving for, I don't know about you, sugar, alcohol, sometimes there's things that are easy fixes, right? But they aren't the healthiest for us. So using art, using writing, using nature, using some soothing things that will be better and healthier for our soul. I think that kind of comes in. Okay, I stopped sharing, and that was good timing for that because I'm seeing there's comments that I missed because I was in share mode. So I want to acknowledge those comments and then also provide a little bit of time for some additional questions or things. Okay, so many talented people here. Indeed. Thanks for singing. Thank you, Blaine. Chords. Okay, people are giving me, thank you, Joni. Thank you, Victoria. People are giving elements of music. Chords. Harmony is an important one. Repetition is designed, yes, says. Very, very deep. Repetition is designed. I think that's a little mini poem. I'm gonna have to soak that one in later. That was very good. Yes, we will. Okay, yes, we'll get you out by one. So Vince went on nature walks for inspiration. Yes, there's
I think
all
Mona was, I shouldn't speak for Mona, but I think she wanted to hear some more music and do some more play and writing. I don't know that we're worried about ending at one as much as we want to do it. We're having so much fun.
Okay, we could stretch it out. What we could do is we could give, if you wanted, we could give you a little bit of time to share the thing you were going to share, and then I could soak up the rest of the time with presentation. Is that like a nice little breather?
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah. Because then I'm sure there'll be time at the end. It's only 12:47.
Yes.
I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the grants program because we're so excited about it. Kendall and Isabel and I have been talking about her presentation and her grant and all of that from last year, and it's been so exciting. And Kendall, you're such an inspiration. I just I'm so motivated by you. I really want to be that interesting. So thanks for helping me today to, I don't know, get some musicality into my voice, or not be afraid to sing a little piece of some silliness. You know, I'm such a stick in the mud. I get sort of I don't know, professorly. I need to joke around a little more, not take myself so seriously. So I appreciate you today.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share my screen and make a formal announcement. You may be seeing these in the faculty lounge. I'm also going to show you here on your canvas. As you know, we have a faculty lounge, a virtual faculty lounge. So if you go in there and click, you'll find here faculty development. This is where Isabel lists or posts the videos. So if you should miss a meeting of ours, or you want to go back to prior meetings, those are all under faculty development. But what's new is that here in faculty grants, we have released the forms, and we're looking for you to submit your ideas. So we're super happy with Kendall and what she's been able to accomplish, and what she's been able to share today. If you receive a faculty grant, we will expect you to do some sort of give back. It does not have to be a meeting. If you are an introvert like myself and you don't want to sing in front of the faculty, no, singing's not required. But you could also create some sort of a site or a another kind of a give back or a contribution, so you can think creatively about what your give back might be. These are the kind of things that people have done in the past. They've attended conferences, research topics, studied with masters, gotten certifications. The main things that we want you to put on your application are answers to these three questions here. How does your studies or your experience or whatever you're doing benefit Fidm, the faculty here and the students at Fidm? So maybe read through this for a little bit of ideas. Here's a step-by-step to the grants application process. Isabel and I are both available to you to answer questions about that. If you should have questions come up, please feel free to shoot me an email at any time. We have more money this year than we've ever had. We actually have $6,000, I think even more than $6,000 to give away. So my only concern is that we won't have enough applicants. So will you please think of what you want to do and get us a proposal? Here is the grant application in PDF and the grant application in Word. And the scoring card. Of course, we teach our students to look at the rubrics as they are doing assignments, so it wouldn't hurt to look in there. That's basically this again right here, right? So if you open that up, as Kendall said, you do not need to be intimidated by this grant application. This is basically your information, what you want to do, who it's going to benefit, what you've done in the past to sort of support how you're going to bring this together, if you've had any previous grant experience, and you're just going to fill in these blanks and give us maybe a paragraph or two on each of these, keeping in mind, of course, who it's going to benefit and this rubric right here. If you have any questions, I'm available. This is a quick video that Isabel made last year. We may redo that with a little bit of Kendall's contribution if she allows us to use this meeting. But again, we're available, we're ready. If you will do it earlier rather than later, we can look at that. We're also going to have a presentation. I forget, Isabel, when is that? In a month or two, we're going to have a meeting like this one. You'll get paid for an hour to come in and talk to us about your proposal. So if you have a few paragraphs written up, or you have questions for us at that time, you may have some specifics like, you know, will this pay for this or that, or can I get this or that or whatever. If you don't get the full amount that you request, then we'll send you a note that says, you know, I mean, if you're requesting airfare to New York and a hotel and an entrance and all that, and you go above $2,000, it may depend on who else applies. You may get everything you ask for, you may get some of that. Sometimes we send back a note that says, we can offer you this much, do you still want to do it? So that answers one of the main questions that comes up. The money can be spent at any time during the year, so we have permission to do anything next year. You're going to want to have it done before December. But I think that you probably want to just start jotting ideas, start keeping a little notepad, start, I don't know, playing some music, right, Kendall? How did you get your grant to come together?
You know, I don't know. I've always been a pretty confident person. I give my parents a lot of credit for that because they always believed in me. And so I think a lot of it is the positivity of thinking. So I'll just put a little bit of that out to y'all. And there's no such thing as failure.
Every single one of you has a really good opportunity to get some money this year.
Yeah, and every time you try or put yourself out there, you did something. You succeeded at that. You know, and good for you. It's like whatever you try, you're succeeding. So you can only benefit yourself. You can only get something potentially positive. And if you don't apply at all, there's nothing there, right? So anyway.
There's money here. We want to give it away. Come and get some.
There you go. I can't beat that. And also, as you were saying in the beginning, with kind of being professory and all of that, for sure. Like even as I was getting nervous about presenting today, I was like, oh, like it's the faculty and I'm so young and like, how am I gonna, or I don't want to be treating them like they're students. And you get in your head and all these anxieties. But then you just remember like the things that connect with people the most, I feel like is authenticity. And I think with our students who they're 17, 18, 19, whatever, they love when we can do a little open mic opportunity in class so they can play their instruments, or where you can hear from them and listen to them more and hear what are their hobbies, or what kind of, I do like a little me bag speech where they present different items. Here's my headphones. I love to listen to music. And then try to like really make a little bit of time to just, that's wonderful, Larry. When did you start playing music? And even just those little moments of where I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm not being formal enough, or I'm not being professional enough, but it breaks that wall and it makes them laugh. And sometimes I'll make fun of myself for not being able to keep up with all the like, I guess I don't know how to describe it, like the slogans of the day, the I'm here for it, or like, I don't know, like, are they still saying like these things, or like all the things? Remember that was, and like, are they still saying all the things? And so they'll kind of play with me a little bit, but I think sometimes it's that vulnerability that really allows us to have such influence in their lives in positive ways. So I would just encourage you with that. I think we don't have time for that. I don't want to rush that and not let people have a chance to share. And in theater, I learned always keep your audience wanting more. So I'll end there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kendall. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. And then now I want to open to questions. If anyone has a question specifically to today's workshop about how Kendall gets inspiration, like if you're actually creating content, I think I read the comment of someone who's actually creating a page for well-being. You know, in fact, you are actually right now moving into that arena of creating content and you need advice, or you're facing any challenges, being more creative and getting out of your comfort zone, like incorporating something into your syllabus, in your discussions, but you can actually trigger that creative / side of your students. I think this is a great moment. So we can share a little bit about it. You can write it down if you don't want to talk publicly, and you can also have Kendall's information if you want to do it offline. Any questions so far? Also, if you have actually questions regarding the grants, this is also a good opportunity to talk about that. Let me try to see if anyone is writing something.
I'll go ahead. I'll ask a question. So Kendall, are you saying that you play music in the background a lot for your students as they write?
I do. It's interesting. I do this kind of as an exercise, but strangely, I have not actually done that.
Okay.
So you're giving me an idea for a very obvious one now,
Right.
But I haven't done that in the classroom. I love that.
I always bring in music as much as possible when I'm not lecturing. If they're doing projects, drawing or anything, or schematic design, I think they just love it. They just love having a little music, and it breaks up that tension that they're all kind of feeling because they're overloaded.
Yes.
So I've been doing that for since I was working in San Diego and I started it there. But I noticed they love it. It makes them want to come to class too.
It reminds me in my high school, my science teacher used to play like Enya or something during our tests. And like, it was that little break, that little breath.
Right.
So thank you for that. That's a great application of this.
So before wrapping this up, I want to also end it up with a really interesting note about today's professional development, which is kind of unique. We're right now 21 people here. And then I want to ask you, each of you, to think of a song that you like, that is really defines you. You're going to write it down, and I'm going to create a playlist with all our songs. And this is going to be our playlist for this professional development. So you can actually replay it. You can learn about new artists, about new songs. This is actually a good way. You know, sometimes I think we're kind of, my husband is like that. My husband is always hunting for my music. Like, who you're hearing? Who is that? But this is a good opportunity, again, to share, to learn, and to have something memorable that you can hear it and then remember about this.
Beautiful.
Love it. So I'm going to start taking actually even notes here so we can keep it, and I will be sharing it. Yes.
Fun. While you guys are writing, just thank you all again for coming. And I know you get paid to be here too, but I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful quarter and fall, and the weather's starting to shift, at least up here, which is like a nice vibe and refreshing vibe. So happy holidays.
Yeah, I just find myself in a little bit of a manic state. I think I need to go dance now.
Let's do it.
Kendall, it's Mona.
Hi.
How do you let them, isn't it best if they also choose music? Meaning it's not just us,
Who is the they?
the
I
students?
found, Mona, that's super
Oh, yeah.
important in my drawing classes. Let them
Yeah.
take over Spotify one at a time. you know.
Yeah.
Totally. Great.
And that's where I'm learning hip hop. Starting to get a taste for
And I
some of the good
say
stuff.
that, Blaine, because I mean, you know, every class I work very hard not to seem completely old and out of date. And music is a place you can appear old and out of date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My 80s playlist gets old. They love it, but
They do.
I need a
And-
little bit of education too, right?
And a way you can connect with them. That's a really good point. But I'm out of time. I think we're out of time, so I don't want to keep you guys into your next sessions and everything. But
Thank you,
Thank
Kendall.
you so much. Thank you, everyone. Please remember to input this. You know, you work today part of this professional development, and then you're going to be compensated for this, and then have a great weekend. Remember, if you have any questions, you can access actually going to the faculty launch. You can access this presentation, Kendall's email. And if you're thinking about writing a grant, this is a really simple grant application. You guys saw it. It's really simple. If you have an idea, make it happen. You can combine your passion by giving back to the community, to the students, and to the instructors. We are here to help each other and have a great day. Thank you so
Awesome.
much,
Tony, are you
guys.
unmuted for a reason? Did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to say
Bye,
thank you.
everybody.
This was a great meeting, and we look forward to your grant application. But yeah,
Awesome.
it's exciting. Thank you so much, Kendall. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.